Not every Ford engine is remembered fondly. Some are immortalized as legends, machines that built reputations for power, reliability, and innovation. But others? They became cautionary tales, nightmares under the hood, the kind of motors that drained wallets, stranded drivers, and left permanent scars on Ford's reputation. The contrast is striking. While one Ford engine could be celebrated for running 500,000 miles, another in the same decade might fail catastrophically before hitting 100,000. That split between glory and disaster is what keeps enthusiasts talking, decades after these engines left the factory. The question, then, is simple but haunting. How did Ford, a company capable of producing icons like the Flathead V8 and the 5 Coyote, also give us some of the most unreliable, failure-prone power plants in automotive history? Buckle up, because we're diving deep into the top 7 worst Ford engines that won't litterast. And we begin with a motor that was supposed to be the crown jewel of Ford's Super Duty lineup, but instead became one of the most infamous diesel engines ever sold. When Ford launched the 6-liter Power-Stroke diesel in 2003, it was marketed as the future of heavy-duty performance. Built by Navistar for the Super Duty trucks and the giant Excursion SUV, it promised cutting-edge emissions compliance, robust towing power, and a modern diesel design. But what buyers got instead was one of the most notorious failures in Ford's history. Within months, owners began reporting catastrophic problems: injectors that quit under load, head gaskets that couldn't handle the pressure, and EGR coolers that cracked wide open. A diesel that should have lasted 500,000 miles often struggled to survive 100,000 without major surgery. One chilling statistic circulated among frustrated owners: more than half of early 6-liters needed major head gasket work before 75,000 miles. Dealerships were swamped, and mechanics joked that keeping a head gasket kit in stock was more essential than keeping oil filters. The 6-liters legacy is defined by its failures. Coolant intrusion turned combustion chambers into steam rooms. Overheating led to warped heads and seized pistons. If ignored, the result wasn't just a dead truck, it could mean an engine bay fire. Ford and Navistar scrambled, with recalls and redesigns, but the reputation damage was irreversible. Leader lawsuits flew, warranty budgets ballooned, and Ford's diesel credibility took a decade-long hit. For owners, the frustration was personal. They had bought into Ford's promise of unstoppable torque, only to find themselves stranded with repair bills that could exceed $8,000. Many still carry the scars, warning others that 6 means heartbreak. Eventually, Ford pulled the plug and replaced it with the 6.4-liter Power-Stroke. But instead of salvation, the new motor brought a fresh wave of failures. It's a reminder that sometimes trying to fix one disaster only creates another. And before we get to that sequel, we need to talk about a gasoline V8 that seemed reliable on the surface, yet betrayed its owners with exploding spark plugs and broken timing chains. When Ford rolled out the 5.4-liter Triton V8 in 1997, it seemed destined for greatness. It powered bestsellers like the F-150, the Expedition, and even luxury models like the Lincoln Navigator. On paper, it offered plenty of muscle, smooth torque delivery, enough horsepower for towing, and the cachet of a modern modular design. For a time, it looked like Ford had built the perfect do-it-all V8, but as the miles piled up, the nightmare began. Owners of early models discovered a bizarre, almost unbelievable flaw: spark plugs ejecting themselves straight out of the cylinder head. With too few threads cut into the aluminum head, the plugs couldn't hold under pressure. Engines literally spat them out, often with a deafening pop that left drivers stranded and facing repairs costing thousands. The problem became so common that Triton's spark plug blowout turned into a notorious search phrase across internet forums. The bad news didn't stop there. Literator 3-valve versions of the 5.4-liter introduced their own plague: timing chain tensioner failures. When those tensioners gave up, the chain slipped and catastrophic engine damage followed. Drivers faced the grim prospect of full engine replacement, sometimes before the odometer even rolled past 120,000 miles. Add in a fragile fuel pump driver module that corroded easily, often shutting down engines mid-drive, and the 5.4-liter Triton became less of a powerhouse and more of a ticking time bomb. Despite Ford's incremental fixes, the engine's reputation never recovered. What could have been the backbone of Ford's truck lineup ended up symbolizing frustration. And while the Triton haunted gasoline buyers, Ford also tried to tempt them with a smaller, affordable V8. But that engine carried its own curse: coolant leaks, failed gaskets, and a reputation for burning through owners' wallets. In the late 1990s, Ford sought to offer a simple, affordable V8 option for its best-sellered F-150 pickup. That engine became the 4.2-liter V8, a motor that seemed modest but practical, a workhorse for budget-conscious buyers who didn't need the brawn of the larger Triton. At first glance, it had promise: compact, reasonably efficient, and cheaper to maintain. But the reality quickly soured. Instead of becoming a dependable everyday engine, the 4.2-liter turned into one of Ford's most embarrassing failures. The most infamous issue was the intake manifold gasket. Poor sealing meant coolant seeped into the intake, mixing with air and fuel. Drivers who ignored the warning signs, rough idle, white exhaust smoke, or unexplained coolant loss, soon faced overheating, warped heads, or even catastrophic engine failure. In some cases, trucks died completely on the side of the road, leaving owners with repair bills that rivaled the value of the vehicle itself. The misery didn't stop there. The timing cover gasket was another weak link, again letting coolant escape and wreak havoc internally. What should have been a straightforward, reliable motor instead earned a reputation for breakdowns that seemed endless. Ford did recall certain early models to address the intake issues, but by then the damage was done. Word spread quickly. The 4.2-liter couldn't be trusted. For truck owners, people who relied on their vehicles for work, this was devastating. They bought into the Ford badge expecting durability, but instead they were saddled with a money pit. Mechanics began warning buyers outright to avoid F-150S equipped with the 4.2-liter. Its failure was more than technical, it was reputational. Ford, known for strong truck engines, now had a weak link, tarnishing the lineup. In hindsight, the 4.2-liter stands as a cautionary tale. It proved that even a budget-friendly engine could destroy brand loyalty if reliability was sacrificed. And if this V8 frustrated buyers, the next engine in Ford's troubled lineup would make them furious. A V6 that combined flawed materials, blown head gaskets, and a tendency to fail well before 100,000 miles. Some engines fail quietly. The 3.8-liter Essex V6 failed loudly, literally and figuratively. This motor, used in everything from the Ford Taurus and Mercury Sable to even certain Mustangs, was meant to be Ford's versatile mid-size engine. For a time, it sold in huge numbers, promising efficiency with just enough muscle for family cars and sporty coupes alike. But lurking inside was a design flaw so devastating it became one of Ford's most infamous reliability scandals: the head gasket. The 3.8-liter paired an aluminum cylinder head with a cast-iron block. On paper, this combination should have balanced weight and strength. In practice, the differing thermal expansion rates meant the head gasket lived under constant stress. Over time, it cracked, leaked, and eventually failed outright. Owners reported rough idling, sudden misfires, and plumes of white smoke pouring from the exhaust, classic signs of coolant burning inside the cylinders. What made the Essex's downfall worse was timing. Many engines failed long before 100,000 miles, often the benchmark of durability buyers expected. Families who purchased a Taurus for its practicality soon found themselves staring at $2,000 to $3,000 repair bills, sometimes more than the car was worth. For Mustang enthusiasts who opted for the V6, the Essex became a badge of shame compared to the bulletproof V8 options. Ford attempted to patch the problem with updated gaskets in later years, but the damage to reputation was irreversible. Forums and consumer reports warned future buyers away, and mechanics grew accustomed to diagnosing another blown 3.8 head gasket before the hood was even opened. The Essex became a cautionary tale in quality control. When your family sedan's engine can't last through a decade of normal use, trust evaporates. Despite its popularity, the Essex is remembered not for its versatility, but for its failures. It stands as a reminder that even small design miscalculations can snowball into disasters that haunt an entire brand. And while this V6 plagued families, Ford's attempt at a modern four-cylinder turbo was about to frustrate a whole new generation of buyers. When Ford unveiled the 2-liter EcoBoost Inline-4, it looked like the perfect compromise for a new generation of drivers. Fuel efficiency, turbocharged punch, and the promise of modern engineering, this engine powered everything from the Escape and Fusion to the Edge. It seemed like the logical evolution away from gas-hungry V6s, delivering respectable horsepower with fewer cylinders. But beneath the marketing, a fatal flaw was waiting. And the most notorious problem was coolant intrusion. Defective sealing allowed coolant to seep directly into the combustion chamber. For unsuspecting drivers, the symptoms started small: rough idle, misfires, and the dreaded check engine light. But if left unchecked, the issue escalated to overheating, warped internals, and in many cases complete engine failure. Families who bought a Fusion for reliable commuting, sometimes before 60,000 miles. One chilling story circulated online of a driver whose brand-new Escape overheated so quickly that by the time they reached the dealership, the engine was already ruined. The cost? Thousands in repairs on a vehicle barely out of warranty. And coolant wasn't the only enemy. The turbocharged setup generated high operating temperatures, which often cracked the exhaust manifold. Owners noticed power loss, plummeting fuel economy, and in some cases, dangerous levels of smoke from under the hood. The very features that made the EcoBoost appealing, small size, high efficiency had created a reliability nightmare. Ford issued multiple recalls and design changes, but for many, the damage to trust was permanent. Instead of being remembered as the smart balance between power and economy, the 2-liter EcoBoost became shorthand for costly failures. Online forums are filled with frustrated owners, some trading in their cars early to avoid looming repair bills. In the end, the 2-liter EcoBoost proved that chasing efficiency at all costs can backfire when reliability is sacrificed. And if this 4-cylinder left buyers burned, Ford's next diesel disaster would scorch them even worse. When Ford replaced the infamous 6-liter Power Stroke with the new 6.4-liter in 2008, hope was high. Truck owners wanted redemption, a diesel engine that could restore faith in the Super Duty lineup. On paper, the 6.4-liter looked promising: twin turbochargers, advanced emissions equipment, and improved power delivery. It was supposed to fix the sins of its predecessor, but instead of redemption, the 6.4-liter delivered a new wave of headaches, becoming another black mark on Ford's diesel history. One of its most damning issues was fuel dilution. Diesel fuel leaked into the crankcase, mixing with engine oil and stripping away its lubricating properties. Suddenly, engines that should have lasted 500,000 miles were wearing out prematurely. In extreme cases, the dilution led to runaway conditions, massive oil consumption, or even engine fires. For many owners, a work truck became a gamble every time the key turned. The misery didn't stop there. The 6.4-liter became notorious for turbocharger failures, often caused by heat stress and oil contamination. When a turbo let go, performance collapsed, repair costs skyrocketed, and downtime stretched for weeks. Add to that a diesel particulate filter (DPF) system that clogged frequently, strangling performance and leaving trucks wheezing under load. EGR coolers cracked, pipes failed, and coolant leaks piled on top of an already fragile reputation. For buyers who thought they had escaped the 6-liter disasters, the 6.4-liter felt like betrayal. Repair bills often reached 5 figures, and resale values plummeted. Forums and owner groups began advising newcomers to avoid the 6.4-liter entirely, calling it the engine that killed loyalty. Ford eventually replaced it with the 6.7-liter Scorpion, built in-house instead of by Navistar, a move that signaled just how badly the trust had been broken. If the 6.4-liter taught anything, it was this: patching over old flaws without fixing the root cause only compounds disaster. And while Ford's diesel woes tarnished its heavy-duty lineup, another problem was brewing in its crown jewel, the EcoBoost family. When Ford unveiled the 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6 in 2009, it looked like the perfect answer to a new era of motoring. Twin turbos, direct injection, and V8 level power with V6 fuel economy on paper, it was revolutionary. The F-150, Explorer, and even Lincoln sedans gained newfound muscle without sacrificing efficiency. Ford sold it as the future, and for a while it seemed unstoppable. But as the miles rolled in, owners began to uncover a darker truth. One of the most devastating problems was timing chain stretch. The very system designed to keep crankshaft and camshaft in sync began failing in alarming numbers. Engines rattled on startup, misfired under load, and in the worst cases, timing jumped far enough to destroy pistons and valves. Owners faced catastrophic repairs costing thousands, sometimes before 120,000 miles. But timing chains weren't the only Achilles heel. Because of direct injection, fuel bypassed the intake valves entirely. Without gasoline washing over them, carbon deposits built up, layer by layer, until engines struggled to breathe. Symptoms ranged from rough idling to severe performance loss. and the only solution was costly cleaning procedures or valve replacements. Add in turbocharger failures, often due to oil contamination and relentless heat, and the EcoBoost's shining reputation began to dim. For buyers, the disappointment cut deep. They had embraced EcoBoost as the smarter alternative to thirsty V8s, only to be met with bills rivaling those of luxury imports. Forums filled with stories of owners replacing entire timing chain assemblies or turbos well before the warranty expired. Instead of being remembered as the engine that redefined Ford trucks, the early 3.5-liter EcoBoost earned a reputation as one of the most troublesome modern power plants. Ford has since introduced improvements, but the stain remains. It's a reminder that even innovation comes at a price if durability is sacrificed. And as we close the list, one truth stands out. From blown gaskets to fragile turbos, these engines reveal the fine line between brilliance and disaster. Some Ford engines created legends, but these became warnings etched in broken parts and repair bills. What lessons do these disasters teach? That trust, once lost, is almost impossible to win back. Owners who poured money into endless repairs didn't just lose engines, they lost faith. Mechanics stopped recommending them. Online forums spread horror stories, and resale values plummeted. Even when Ford tried to fix the problems with recalls and redesigns, the damage to reputation was already done. Still, for buyers and enthusiasts, the takeaway is clear. Not all Fords are created equal. Do your research, know the weak links, because behind the blue oval badge there are both legends and nightmares. So, what do you think? Did your Ford ever suffer from one of these notorious engines? Share your story in the comments, hit like if you've survived one of these disasters, and subscribe to Muscle Cars Revolution for more untold stories of triumph and failure on four wheels.